A warning to our viewers. What you're about to watch is a true story. The following program contains content that some viewers may find disturbing. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. You're watching True Crime Buff HQ, seeking justice for children failed by the system.
My child isn't breathing, or he's having a hard time breathing.
How old is he?
He's 9.
Good CPR. Check his breathing.
On a quiet day in Ohio, a frantic 911 call came in. A father reported his son couldn't breathe. When police and paramedics rushed to the home on Helen Street, they found something that would haunt them forever. A 9-year-old boy, weighing only 30 pounds, gasping for air, losing consciousness. Officers searched the cluttered house, their body cams capturing every moment. The child was so malnourished, he looked like a toddler. Emergency responders worked desperately to save his life, but that wasn't all. As detectives investigated further, they discovered another child, a 7-year-old girl. She weighed only 29 pounds, 2 siblings, both starved, both fighting to survive, and when officers looked at the parents, they couldn't believe what they saw. The mother weighed over 300 pounds. Well-fed, healthy. How could this happen? What kind of monsters starve their own children? This is their story. Let's go back to that moment when officers first walked into the house. The body cam shows everything. A cluttered living room, trash everywhere. And then they see him. The 9-year-old boy is lying on the floor. His body is so thin you can see every bone. His arms look like sticks. His face is sunken in, he's struggling to breathe. One officer kneels down beside him. "Stay with me, buddy," he says. But you can hear the shock in his voice. Paramedics rush in. They check his vital signs. His heart rate is dangerously low. His body temperature has dropped. He's slipping in and out of consciousness. The officer steps back. He turns away from the camera. His hands are shaking. This wasn't just a sick child. This was severe starvation. At 9 years old, a healthy boy should weigh around 60 to 70 pounds. This child weighed 30 pounds. That's what a 2-year-old weighs. His body had been eating itself to survive. When you don't get food, your body burns fat first. Then it starts breaking down muscle. Eventually, it attacks your organs. This boy was in the final stages. His body was shutting down. The officer who found him later said it was the worst thing he'd ever seen in 15 years on the force. "I have kids," he told investigators. "I couldn't understand how a parent could do this." He wasn't alone. Multiple officers at the scene broke down. Some had to step outside. Others couldn't speak. This is what people don't understand about these cases. It's not just the victims who suffer. The first responders carry this trauma forever. They see things that never leave their minds. They go home to their own children and hold them tighter. They have nightmares. Some need therapy for years. Paramedics worked fast. They wrapped the boy in blankets to warm his body. They started an IV to get fluids into him. They gave him oxygen. But they had to be careful. When someone is this starved, you can't just feed them. Their body can go into shock. It's called refeeding syndrome. It can kill them. The ambulance rushed him to the hospital. Doctors said if they had arrived even a few hours later, he would have died. This 9-year-old boy was that close to death. In his own home, while his parents watched. But remember, He wasn't the only victim in that house. My dear friend, before we continue with this heartbreaking case, I need your help. Please hit the like button right now. Subscribe to the channel and share this video. Every single share could reach someone who recognizes these warning signs in their own neighborhood. You could help save a child's life. In the comments, write your city and what time you're watching. This helps me publish these investigations when they'll reach the most people and protect the most children. If this content matters to you, consider joining as a channel member or leaving a super thanks. Your support allows me to spend weeks researching cases like this one, cases that demand justice and awareness. My channel exists to tell the stories of children who needed protection but didn't get it. These aren't just tragic stories, they're lessons in recognizing danger. They're warnings we must never ignore. Watch the other videos on this channel. Understanding cases like these could one day help you notice the warning signs and protect a child in danger. And speaking of understanding what creates monsters, everyone asks, what made Ed Gein this way? My new book, The God That Made a Monster, answers that question by examining the religious trauma that created a killer. It reveals what Netflix didn't show you. Grab it using the link below. Thank you for your support. Now, let's continue with this case. Because this 9-year-old boy wasn't the only victim. While paramedics rushed the 9-year-old boy to the hospital, detectives continued searching the house. That's when they found her. A 7-year-old girl, hiding in a bedroom upstairs. She was so small, officers thought she was 3 or 4 years old. But her birth certificate said she was 7. She weighed 29 pounds. 1 pound less than her older brother. Her arms were like twigs. Her legs couldn't support her weight. Her hair was falling out in clumps. Her skin was pale and cold. But unlike her brother, she was conscious, she was awake, and she was terrified. When officers tried to talk to her, she didn't speak. She just stared at them with huge, hollow eyes. This little girl had been starving for so long, her body had stopped growing. At 7 years old, a healthy girl should weigh between 45 and 55 pounds. She was 29 pounds. That's what a 1-year-old baby weighs. Her bones were fragile. Her muscles had wasted away. Her organs were barely functioning. Doctors later said her brain development had been damaged. Starvation during childhood doesn't just hurt the body, it permanently damages the brain. This girl would carry the physical and mental scars of this abuse for the rest of her life. But here's what made this case even more disturbing. This girl had been going to school. Teachers had seen her. Other parents had seen her. School nurses had weighed her. How did nobody notice? How did nobody report this? The truth is, they did notice. Multiple people had called Child Protective Services. Reports had been filed, concerns had been raised, but somehow this little girl fell through the cracks. The system that was supposed to protect her had failed. And while she was slowly dying, her parents were eating. The refrigerator was full of food. But none of it was for the children. Paramedics carefully carried the girl to a second ambulance. Like her brother, she needed immediate medical care. At the hospital, doctors started the same careful process. Slow rehydration, gradual nutrition, constant monitoring. Both children were placed in intensive care. Both were fighting for their lives. The medical team said these were the worst cases of child starvation they had ever seen in Ohio. 2 children, same house, same parents, both nearly dead from hunger. But now investigators had a bigger question to answer. How long had this been going on? And why did the parents call 911 now? The answers would shock everyone. While both children fought for their lives in the hospital, detectives turned their attention to the parents. The father was 42 years old. The mother was 38. Both were well fed. Both were healthy. Both showed no signs of starvation or neglect. In fact, when officers searched the house, they found something shocking. The refrigerator was full. The pantry was stocked. There's plenty of food in the home, but none of it had been given to the children. This wasn't a case of poverty. This wasn't a family struggling to survive. This was deliberate. This was calculated. This was a choice. Detectives interviewed the parents separately, and their stories didn't match. The father claimed he didn't know how bad things had gotten. He said the mother was in charge of feeding the children. He said he worked long hours and wasn't home much, but neighbors told a different story. They said the father was home all the time. They said he ate meals in front of the children. They said he ignored them when they begged for food. The mother had a different excuse. She claimed the children had eating disorders. She said they refused to eat. She said she tried everything, but they wouldn't cooperate. Medical records proved this was a lie. The children didn't have eating disorders. They had been systematically starved. This is what makes cases like this so disturbing. These parents didn't starve all their children. They had other kids in the home who were healthy and well-fed. They specifically targeted these two. Psychologists call this selective abuse. It's when parents single out certain children for mistreatment while treating others normally. Why do parents do this? Sometimes it's because the child reminds them of someone they hate. Sometimes it's because the child was unplanned or unwanted. Sometimes there's no clear reason at all. But what's consistent is the level of cruelty. These parents watch their children waste away. They ignored their cries for food. They felt no empathy, no guilt, no remorse. During interrogation, detectives asked the parents a simple question: why didn't you feed them? Neither parent could answer. The father looked away, the mother started crying, but neither could explain why they let their own children starve while they ate 3 meals a day. Detectives knew they were dealing with something beyond neglect. This was torture. This was attempted murder. And the evidence was about to get even worse. Detectives began piecing together how long this had been going on, and what they discovered was horrifying. The abuse had lasted for years, not months, years. The 9-year-old boy had been systematically starved since he was 6 years old. 3 years of deliberate neglect. 3 years of watching his siblings eat while he went hungry. The 7-year-old girl had suffered even longer. She'd been targeted since she was 4. Nearly half her life spent in starvation. School records showed both children had been absent frequently. When they did attend, teachers noticed they were always hungry. They begged classmates for food. They ate scraps from trash cans. Multiple teachers had reported concerns to Child Protective Services, but somehow the cases were closed. The parents always had excuses, and the children were sent back home. Neighbors told detectives they'd seen warning signs for years. One neighbor said she'd given the children food through the fence when the parents weren't looking. She said they ate like they hadn't seen food in days. Another neighbor said the children would stand at the window and watch other kids eat. They never played outside. They never smiled. They looked like ghosts. But when neighbors called authorities, nothing changed. The parents were good at hiding the abuse. They kept the children isolated. They homeschooled them. They made sure no one could see what was really happening inside that house. Medical experts testified about the damage done to both children. The 9-year-old boy's organs were shutting down. His heart was weak. His bones were brittle. Doctors said if he'd been found even a few days later, he wouldn't have survived. The 7-year-old girl had permanent developmental delays. Years of malnutrition had affected her brain. She'd need therapy for the rest of her life. Both children would carry physical and emotional scars forever. The abuse had stolen their childhood. It had stolen their health. And it had nearly stolen their lives. Detective Sarah Martinez broke down during her testimony. She'd been investigating child abuse cases for 15 years. But this one haunted her. "I've seen a lot of terrible things," she said. "But watching those children beg for food in the hospital, watching them cry when we told them they were safe now, I'll never forget it." Detective James Cooper echoed her pain. These parents had every opportunity to do the right thing. They chose cruelty instead. They chose to torture their own children, and they showed no remorse. The evidence was overwhelming. The case was airtight. Now it was time for justice. On March 15th, both parents were formally charged. The charges were severe, and they were identical for both children. 2 counts of attempted murder, 2 counts of child torture, 2 counts of child endangerment, 2 counts of false imprisonment. If convicted on all counts, each parent faced up to 50 years in prison. The prosecutor made it clear this wasn't neglect, this was intentional, this was calculated, this was attempted murder by starvation. These parents made a choice every single day, the prosecutor stated. They chose to feed themselves, they chose to feed their other children, but they chose to starve these 2. That's not an accident, that's murder. The legal strategy was built around the dual case structure. For the 9-year-old boy, prosecutors emphasized the 3-year timeline, the deliberate isolation, the fact that he weighed only 37 pounds when he should have weighed 65. For the 7-year-old girl, they focused on the longer abuse period, the developmental damage, the permanent scars she would carry for life. Both cases showed the same pattern, the same cruelty, the same lack of remorse. Defense attorneys tried to argue mental illness. They claimed the parents were overwhelmed. They said it was a tragic case of neglect, not intentional abuse. But the evidence destroyed that defense. The full refrigerator, the well-fed parents, the other healthy children in the home. This wasn't mental illness. This was evil. The community was outraged. Vigils were held for both children. Hundreds of people showed up with candles and teddy bears. They demanded justice. They demanded answers. "How does this happen in our neighborhood?" one resident asked. "How do we let children starve to death while we're all living our lives?" Local news coverage was relentless. Every day brought new details. Every day brought more horror. The case became national news within 48 hours. Social media exploded with anger. People wanted to know why Child Protective Services had failed, why teachers' reports were ignored, why neighbors' calls went unanswered. This is the question that haunts every case like this. How many people saw the warning signs and did nothing? How many teachers noticed? How many neighbors suspected? How many systems failed? These children didn't suffer in silence. They cried for help. They begged for food. They showed every possible sign of abuse. But the system failed them, and it nearly cost them their lives. The trial was about to begin, and the world was watching. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Both parents pleaded not guilty. They sat emotionless in the courtroom, while witnesses described the horror their children endured. The jury deliberated for only 4 hours. Guilty, on all counts, for both children. The courtroom erupted in applause. The judge had to call for order, but even he couldn't hide his disgust. "In my 30 years on the bench," he said, "I have never seen cruelty like this. You tortured your own children. You watched them starve. You showed no mercy, and you will receive none from this court." The father was sentenced first, 50 years in prison, no possibility of parole for 40 years. He would be 82 years old before he could even apply for release. The mother received the same sentence, 50 years, no parole for 40 years. Both parents would spend the rest of their lives behind bars. The prosecutor called it justice for 2 innocent children who suffered unimaginable torture. Defense attorneys said they would appeal, but legal experts agreed. The evidence was overwhelming. The appeal would fail. The children were too young to testify, but their foster parents spoke on their behalf. "These children wake up screaming every night," the foster mother said through tears. "They hoard food under their beds. They're terrified someone will take it away. They flinch when we reach out to hug them." The 9-year-old boy still doesn't understand why his parents hurt him. He asks us every day if he was a bad kid. He thinks he deserved it. The 7-year-old girl doesn't speak much. She just stares. The doctors say years of trauma have affected her ability to process emotions. She may never fully recover. The courtroom was silent. Even the judge wiped tears from his eyes. The parents showed no emotion during sentencing, no tears, no apologies, no remorse. The mother stared straight ahead. The father looked at the floor. Neither one looked at the photos of their starving children displayed in the courtroom. As they were led away in handcuffs, protesters outside screamed for harsher punishment. Some demanded the death penalty. Others called them monsters. But the children were safe now, and their parents would never hurt them again. Justice had been served. But the questions remained. How did this happen? And how do we prevent it from happening again? To understand this case, we need to understand the psychology of parents who torture their own children. Dr. Jennifer Martinez, a forensic psychologist who specializes in family violence, explained it to me. These parents exhibited classic signs of sadistic personality disorder, combined with narcissistic traits. They derived satisfaction from controlling and harming their children. The starvation wasn't about poverty or mental illness. It was about power. But here's the question that haunts everyone. Why these 2 children? Why not the others? Selective abuse within families is more common than people realize, Dr. Martinez continued. Abusive parents often choose scapegoats. Sometimes it's based on perceived defiance. Sometimes it's random. But once a child is labeled as the target, the abuse escalates while other siblings are spared. The warning signs were everywhere, and they were ignored. Teachers reported both children begging for food, multiple times. Child Protective Services investigated and closed the cases. Neighbors saw the children looking malnourished. They called authorities. Nothing happened. School nurses documented weight loss. Medical records showed missed appointments. Red flags were raised and dismissed. The system failed these children at every level. We need mandatory reporting with follow-through. Child advocacy expert Sarah Chen told me. It's not enough to file a report. We need investigators who actually investigate. We need accountability when cases are closed prematurely. But there's another victim in cases like this that we rarely talk about: the first responders. Officer David Chen, who found the children, hasn't worked a patrol shift since that day. He's on medical leave for PTSD. I see their faces every time I close my eyes, he told me. I hear that little boy asking if he could have water. I can't sleep, I can't eat, I can't function. Detective Sarah Martinez retired early. She couldn't continue investigating child abuse cases after this one. People think cops are tough, that we can handle anything, she said. But we're human, and some things break you. This broke me. Dr. Michael Torres, who treats first responders with PTSD, explained the lasting impact. Officers who respond to severe child abuse cases often develop symptoms similar to combat veterans: intrusive memories, hypervigilance, emotional numbness. They carry this trauma for years. We need better mental health support for first responders, mandatory counseling after traumatic calls, peer support programs, because if we don't take care of the people who protect our children, we lose good officers to preventable trauma. This case didn't just destroy 2 children's lives, it shattered everyone who tried to save them. Today, both children are in foster care. The 9-year-old boy has gained 15 pounds. He's learning to trust again. He's starting to smile. The 7-year-old girl is in intensive therapy. She's slowly opening up. She's beginning to heal. Both children have a long road ahead, but they're alive, they're safe, and they're surrounded by people who love them. Their parents will never see them again. If you suspect a child is being abused, please call the National Child Abuse Hotline, 1-800-4A-CHILD. Don't assume someone else will report it. Don't wait for proof. If something feels wrong, make the call. You could save a life. This channel investigates cases where children were failed by the system, where warning signs were ignored, where justice came too late. Subscribe to see more cases like this, and to learn how we can protect the most vulnerable among us, because every child deserves to be safe.